Hi, I'm Kasia from a Lean Six Sigma company, and this video is about explaining Heijunka to all of you guys, but especially to Francois, for who this video was in the first place intended for. Now, I can't explain Heijunka without explaining Heijunka in the context actually of flow and pull. So I'll start by explaining flow and pull, and then Heijunka just becomes super clear. I'm referring back to the slides we used in our Lean Leader training. And where are we located? Actually, we are here in process elimination of waste. And we will be looking at the principles 2, 3, and 4. Okay. The way I'm actually doing this is that I've got my iPad right there, and I'm projecting my iPad at the same time. I want to explain about flow, pull, and Heijunka, and I'm not going to use the typical examples of the Toyota manufacturing, but I'm going to use a very simple example. An example of shirts. Now, this is an example that probably speaks to a lot of people, because it's just going to be super simple, and you'll understand the basic principles of the concepts. So when we talk about shirts, we want to apply an ideal, let's say, zero waste environment of how we go about shirts, how men and women would go about the shirts in their closet. Now, the idea of zero waste is to have processes that allow you to bring problems to the surface. And one of those concepts is to have minimum stock, minimum inventory. Now, for a shirt, you probably, if you open your closet today, you probably have a lot of options. You can take one of maybe 10 or 15 shirts. Now, the concept of flow, right? The idea of flow would be to strive for one piece flow or one piece shirt. Now, how would that look with shirts? Very simple. You've only got one shirt. And your process makes sure that that shirt just flows constantly, is constantly in motion, and has no waiting time. From a perspective of each shirt, if I am the shirt and I'm hanging in your closet, just waiting to be used, I'm waiting. Now, in a lean mindset, waiting is waste. So as a shirt, I want to be used. I want to be in motion. And therefore, if I only have one shirt that I'm constantly using, well, great, that shirt is super happy because it's constantly being used. So in the morning, I put on my shirt, right? I have it all day on. In the evening, I take it off. Now, one piece flow. So what do I do in the evening? Give it a quick wash, put it in the dryer overnight. In the morning, quick ironing, and then putting it back on, you know? So just one piece flow, no inventory or minimal inventory, one shirt, and just only being used. Now, the big advantage of that, beside the fact that I only need to buy one shirt, the big advantage of that is, of course, that creates for my little shirt process. And, you know, I'm not zooming out. I'm not looking at all the other shirts I've got, all the other washing I've got to do. I'm just zooming completely in onto that one product, that one service that I'm offering. From that one perspective, that actually offers me a great deal of, let's see if this works. Okay, great, this should work now. A great deal of stability. And I'm writing it on my iPad at the same time because I want to make a drawing to accompany. So flow is about maximizing the stability in a process. You know, it just cycles around, no exceptions. Okay, you might think, great, but what if I spill on my shirt during the day with a coffee stain? Or in the evening, I've got a networking event and I need to wear another shirt, or my wife asks me to go to a wedding and I need to wear a fancy shirt. I don't have a fancy shirt, I just got one shirt. So my process description with flow is great when you think as it from a very stable environment. If you predict and you can expect unpredictabilities in your process, like changes or other events, or maybe your shirt gets worn out, or you have small kids or a dog and the shirt gets ripped in the day, then you get completely blocked if you have only one. So this is also the reason why lean, although it strives for minimal inventory and zero stock, or minimal stock, zero waste, and one-piece flow, one-piece shirt, it actually understands that in a world with uncertainties, that principle is unachievable. It's just a point on the horizon, a point, yes, where you want to, it's like a cloud you want to strive for. But at the same time, it's not realistic. So you probably will need a couple of more shirts for all those reasons that we discussed. And this is where we start navigating, yes, along the line between stability and what we will call flexibility. So my stable process doesn't allow me to be flexible. It doesn't allow me to change routines. So I need to have a little bit more inventory. Inventory goes slightly up, but at the same time, I want to be in control of that inventory. So in order not to go way above here, right, and just buy 20 shirts because I've got no clue at how much flexibility I'll need, I keep a minimum maximum stock. And in the case of my shirts, for example, I might have 7 shirts, right? And I will keep that minimum maximum. If one gets ripped, something like that, I might have to replenish, right? So I'll set my minimum maximum. If I fall below 5, I need to replenish to 7, or if I fall below 3, that's like too little, I need to replenish. So we work with minimum and maximum. And working with minimum and maximum inventory, actually, that's the principle of flow. No, not flow, of pull. Sorry, guys. So that's pull. And pull means that you have a minimum maximum. So your wife doesn't buy shirts whenever she's in town for you and she just brings them along with you. She just buys them whenever you give her a signal. And I'm just thinking in great stereotypes now with wives buying shirts and men consuming, but that's okay. So when you give her a signal, hey, I'm falling below my minimum, right? I'm the consumer here. Please replenish my stocks. Now, the same thing happens with your washings, right? So you might have 3 dirty shirts and then need to start a washing cycle, or you might decide that you want to do it if you have a minimum of 1 and then. So it all depends on how fast can you replenish, right? So you need to take those things into account. And there are, what this is actually called is that there is a Kanban calculation that you can use, Kanban calculation, to discover, right? To discover exactly the amounts of minimum and maximum that you need to have. Okay, great. So we've got on one extreme, right, we've got stability, maximum flow, one-piece shirt. On the other side, we see that's practically difficult. So we want to have some inventory, but we want to keep it within order. So we install a pull system with a signaling, and the signal is actually the Kanban card. This is the signal. Now, that might mean that might mean that if I look at the washing cycle, right, for that process, and I zoom a little bit out now. So you see, every time we're zooming out. So flow is great if you have like micro. Pull, you're already a little bit more flexible. But something happens if you zoom out a little bit more and you take into account the fact that you, besides shirts, you also have pants and you also have underwear and you have maybe you've got sweaters and so on. You've got your socks and you've got your wife's socks and you've got her shirts and you've got the kids' clothes and so on. And all of these processes, they start mixing up and it becomes a mess. And if you look at it then only from your shirt perspective, the thing might happen that on some days, and so on some weeks, you didn't sweat a lot and you didn't dirty your shirts a lot. So actually you're consuming very little. So your wash cycle, you've got like no washings, right? Maybe one a week. And on another week, I mean, it's been hot, you've been around a lot, and so on and so on. Your consumption there's a lot of variation, right? And you can hear it already. All of a sudden, there's a lot of variation in your process consumption, which drives you to having a lot of washing cycles, right? By effect, on one week, you've got like no washing. On the other week, you've got 3-4 washings. All of a sudden, if you look at the other clothes you wear with your trousers and so on, and you've got pull systems there too, it could be imaginable that on a given Tuesday, all of a sudden you ran out of shirts, you ran out of trousers, you ran out of socks, and you have to run 3 washing machines because otherwise you can't start up in the morning. Whoa. So actually what you're getting with this flexibility is that you become very unpredictable in how your time consumption looks. In effect, is that what we will need then, or in effect, is that you have to start running and then have to slow down again, start running, slow down. This is very tiring in processes. Think of machines that, you need to speed them up, slow them down, speed them up, slow them down. This doesn't work well for machines, but this also doesn't work well for people. Our minds are wired for predictability. And this is where Heijunka comes in. So Heijunka strives for predictability. Predictability, right? So we get like this triangle, that tries to combine a lot of micro effects, but macro effects, right? Predictability, this is the concept of Heijunka. You will find words like leveling out. So how would this look for our shirt process? Well, very simple, Beside having, right, a flow mindset, trying to look for minimum stock, but understanding you need some stock, right? So minimum stock is here, but understand that you need some inventory and managing it. You would also add the fact that you install fixed points, right? So you would not go 1 week like to, I'm not sure this is in view, but you would not go 1 week to a 10 machines per week, and then the next week you would have 0 per week, and then again you would have these peaks, ups and down, but you would actually level them out and you would say, I fix myself, right? I take on average, I look for during a period, I look at how many machines more or less, and then I just, I fix an average in which I'm going to run. And therefore, that might mean that you actually sometimes overrule your pull system, but within certain process limits. For example, I might decide I will wash every Monday the shirts I have. And some weeks that might be 2 shirts and some weeks that might be 3 shirts. So there might be a little bit of variation, but I choose to become predictable and take control of the variation of the world by putting predictability into my own process. This can actually be seen in, or this actually brings, first of all, this brings a lot of peace and calm, right, to your own processes. The way this helps you, so we had flow, we had pull systems to avoid overproduction, to avoid over inventory, and we had Heijunka, right, so leveling the unpredictability, the variation of the world, right, in order to avoid overburden, right, overburden, unevenness. And this is actually, this is in the slides, how it looks over time. Now, what Toyota does, just a little example of what Toyota does, is that they are capable of producing one car within a couple of days. So why? Big question. Why does it take so many weeks or months even between you ordering and the car being delivered to you? Well, that's their principle of Heijunka. They collect all the orders over a certain period of time, and then they compute the average, and they bring predictability to their process by working on the average. And this is why we as customers, we wait, because that gives them much more possibility to work in a constant regime, not trying to speed up and slow down every time. And one of those typical questions that you could ask businesses around you is, what are you going to do next week? How much order, how much volume will you process? And they don't know. They just don't know. So Heijunka is about taking your backspin data, your backlog data, to understand what your average is. And maybe you need some buffer, but then allow yourself to have working on an average. A nice example of Heijunka is what Amazon does in their call centers. You can actually find this online. They make a virtual queue when people call into their call center. Call centers use a lot of Heijunka, and they buffer this, right? But now they can use this as a load leveler. So they can actually decide at a certain point that they will start calling back, for example, or that they will reroute things to another call center. So they fill up the line in order to understand how much capacity they will need, and then they plan for the future to use this capacity. Now, bringing you back to this, how can you apply this now in your own business, right? So how can you actually use stability, flexibility, and predictability? The one thing I see a lot of companies struggling is that they try to put all their business into one of the three, and they try to have all of their processes working on flow, or have pull everywhere, or have Heijunka everywhere. Now, this is in my opinion, not possible. If I go back to my example with the shirts, right? And I think of my shirts, but I also think of all the other stuff I need to wash. There are a lot of different types of products I have. And the variation of predictability is very different. For example, I look at underwear, right? I need a fresh pair of underpants every day. So that's super predictable. I can think of a flow system there. And I could do one-piece flow, have just a minimum stock, wash it out overnight, have it ready for the morning. Great. If I think of my 1-year-old who's doing potty training at this moment, and I think of his underwear, it's chaos. It's completely unpredictable. There's so much variation. So I'll need to combine definitely a pull system with some Heijunka. So I'll need inventory, and I'll need a lot of it because I might have peaks, but at the same time, I'll need to make sure that I plan for my washings. Otherwise I go crazy, you know, otherwise I'll have sometimes 3 machines a day and sometimes none. So the key in using these concepts is actually to start out with a product mapping. A simple product mapping that just allows you, you know, your product or your service, right? So the type of service that you do. So for example, if you are in maintenance and you do preventive and you do corrective maintenance, and you might have corrective with high priority and low priority. So you might have all these, you know, all these types of products. And to look at a couple of features. And I'm just making these up right now, but I will look for a more in-depth study. But how about, how stable is the consumption? Consumption stability, right? Now, how often, right? How often the frequency of unpredictability or instability of variation. So probably these things like what's my consumption, what's my customer demand, right? What's my voice of customer, and what is the average, and what is the spread? What's the average and what is the spread? That will help you to decide what type of, where you want to be in this triangle, right? What do you need? Where do you want to be? Now, optimal, you are somewhere in the middle, but that also means that you lose the benefits of any of the extremes. So to my understanding, it's really key about understanding what your products and your services are, and then deciding the best approach. Will you strive for one-piece flow? Will you go for flexibility and pull? Or will you go for predictability? And normally it's just a hybrid mix of all 3 of them. Okay. That was it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and looking forward to seeing your pull, flow, and Heijunka being set in place.